A very good afternoon to everyone and welcome to Quantum Leap Learning. This is an online series by UltraCamp Asia. So you can find our videos on our YouTube channel, which is also called UltraCamp Asia. So don't forget to check it out after this and also hit the subscribe button. And I believe all of us are here this afternoon to find out how to teach our children learning how to learn skills. Before I begin, maybe I'd just like to have a little show of hands or, type into the chat. How many are parents here with us this afternoon? Welcome, Namala, to our series. Any more parents here? How would I pronounce Dr. Tim? Is it? John, yes. Thank you. All right. I believe there are others. Too shy to say Aruna too. Well, thank you for letting us know. Maybe the next question I'm interested to find out, right? How many children do you have and how old are they this year? Wow. John's children are already adults. 6 months. Wow. Cute baby then. 10 and 3. So one's in primary school and one is still in, I would say, nursery. Right. Namala, you have one child, 14 years old. Thank you for sharing with us because it also helps us to understand our audience better. Now, without further ado, let me share a little bit more about speakers so you know who's speaking to you this afternoon. I'll introduce myself. I'm Vereen Lee. I was a former school teacher in Singapore from MOE, and I've also been a corporate trainer, total up over 24 years of teaching and training experience. So as a school teacher, or rather trained as a school teacher, I also hold a postgraduate diploma in education from NTU. And I'm also the founder of UltraCamp Asia, which is an advanced life skills academy. I will be sharing with you more about UltraCamp Asia at the end. Together with me, I have Jean Tat. I call her a tech in learning advocate because she is passionate about, having technology in learning. And today she'll be sharing with us more about learning how to learn mathematics. As you can see from her credentials, she has all the rights to tell us more about that. And she's also the founder of JT Global Education. Now, the first question we should all be asking ourselves is, what exactly is learning how to learn, right? Have you thought about it? Does anybody want to share with us what you think exactly is learning how to learn? Do you think it is a skill? Do you think it is, in fact, do you think it's necessary to have this learning? Or you think it is something you learn along the way? What do you think? Maybe you can share with us in the chat. It is necessary. Totally agree. Very, very important, isn't it? Yes, it is a necessary skill. Now, this is a man I'm pretty sure all of you would know. If you've never seen his picture, I'm sure you've heard of his name. He is the creator of mind mapping. So he once said this: learning how to learn is life's most important skill. In fact, we do not deny that. And we address this skill in a very different manner today. Okay? So first, this learning skill applies to everything we learn. And when I mean by everything, it is all kinds of learning, from learning a certain sport, for example, basketball, soccer, badminton, to learning a new language, to learning mathematics, chemistry, physics, or even to learning how to ride a bicycle. We all need to have this learning skill in order to help us to learn better. Now, this is a fact. Every child has a different learning style. So over 24 years of teaching, I have been very much I like to observe how children learn. And because I understand that everyone has a different learning style, it also makes me, challenge myself to become a better educator, because you can't deliver the same content, or rather the content in the same way, and expect every child to be able to learn, at the same speed or absorb at the same rate. So this is something we want to look at. So first of all, how many of you are familiar with VARK? Visual, auditory, reading, writing, kinesthetic. I believe most of us are. All right. However, before I dive deeper into the different learning styles, we also want to address this, that no one is really just one style. So no one is just really a visual learner only. We in fact are a combination of a few. So we call ourselves multimodal learners. All right. And that's the importance of why, because most of us are multimodal learners, the right kind of learning environments will stimulate the way we learn. So that's something we need to bear in mind. So if you are a visual learner, or if your child is a visual learner, what does that mean? It means that you probably enjoy looking at learning where there's a lot of graphs, infographics, cartoons, illustrations, videos, artwork, flowcharts, diagrams, because these are visually stimulating. And it makes you learn better when you see all this. So for visual learners, well, we have some helpful techniques to share with you. One of the way you can improve the way you learn, or if your child is a visual learner, help them learn better by color coding information. Right? When they learn something, for example, English, you color code it as blue, for example, math, green, science, yellow, So whenever they see these colors, they relate to them instantly. Also using different fonts. Have you realized that some people, when they write certain things, they love to have different fonts? It's not so much as an artistic, angle to learning, but really it helps them to see better because they are so much of a visual learner. Now, of course, labeling important points with stickers is also a very good way for visual learners to learn better. The second group of learners are auditory. So auditory learners learn best through what? Podcast, webinar like this one, audio book. Rather than forcing them to read a book, they probably let them listen to an audio book and they will learn faster and absorb more. And also having an instructor talking to them face to face. So I know that during this COVID-19 period, a lot of children have to, do home-based learning, and they face a lot of challenges, especially for auditory learners, because they don't see the teacher there. They don't hear the teacher's voice. All they see are words on screen. It makes them, feel that learning is very, very tough. So what can we do to help them? Group discussions, right? Auditory learners like to discuss, they like to talk. Debating is a good way to help them to learn better also, because it challenges them to think while they are listening. And the third one, I like this very much, reading their written work aloud to themselves to help them think through it. Right? A lot of times we think, how can we help a learner who just likes to listen? Well, let them read to themselves. Because when you read to yourself, you are also self-checking. All right? Next, we have the third group of learners. We call them reading and writing. What are the helpful techniques? All right, journal writing. Journaling is a very good technique for learners who love to read and write. In fact, I realized as I was doing this research, I realized that I'm very much a reading and writing kind of learner because I do a lot of writing. I'm not so good with just listening. I need to take down notes. So in fact, if your child or you yourself fall into this category like me, you encourage your children to take notes during class to actually help them process the information and later on have an easier time recalling it later. So learners like myself and all other, learners like this, what do we love? We love reading text-based, anything that's text-based. We love text-based courses. We love PDFs, documents, books, ebooks. Yeah, I have a full shelf of books that I haven't finished reading, but I just love reading, and that's what stimulates me, into thinking more. And of course, the last group of learners, kinesthetic learners. Kinesthetic learners are often known as hands-on learners because they like to just, be active, moving their hands, So what can we do to help them learn better in a setting that maybe it's difficult to have too much movement? Using flashcards, for example, for subjects like math and English, to help them to memorize. Because when you use all these cards, it becomes an interactive experience. It becomes something where they are involved directly. They're not just a passive learner. Now they become an active learner. All right, so just a few techniques for these different kind of learning styles. So back to my question earlier, what exactly is learning how to learn? It is really a learning skill that helps you to speed up your learning, improve your memory, and absorb knowledge and skill faster. Above all, it is the skill above all skills. Really, before we start out learning anything, we need to first learn how to learn. Don't you agree? Because if we don't learn how to learn, how are we going to be accelerating our learning in other things like language and or academic subjects? Now, in the course of doing our extensive research onto this topic of learning how to learn, we come across many wonderful individuals all around the world who have amazing stories to share. How they grew up not being, not doing well in school. In fact, many of these individuals, they did not do well in school at all. They were told that they were poor learners. They were told that they would not do well in life. But look at how they succeeded in the end. And many of these individuals have gone on to exceed their peers in school right now in life. And one such person is Jim Kwik. And I'd like to quote this from Jim Kwik. If you're not familiar with him, go ahead and Google him, after this webinar. He is a top memory coach, and he has been coaching even the Hollywood stars. He often says this: there's no such thing as a good or bad memory, just a trained or untrained memory. So you see, as adults, we often say, oh, I've got such poor memory. I can't remember this. Let's stop for a moment and rephrase what we just said. Maybe we should say, oh, I don't have such a trained memory yet to recall so many things. I'm going to train my memory so that I'm going to be able to recall things easily at the snap of my finger. So today, I'm happy to share with you 3 techniques to help you learn. So these are the learning how to learn skills. There are so many more, and we will be actually launching them one video at a time on our YouTube channel on learning how to learn. For the lack of time today, I'm only able to share just 3 techniques with you. And please go ahead and Google Dr. Barbara Oakley. She is very famous for teaching on learning how to learn. First technique, focus mode and diffuse mode. Now, before I go on to explain what these are, neuroscientists have discovered that our brain works in 2 different ways. So the 2 ways are focus mode and diffuse mode. But I'd like to also state this, that both modes are important in helping us learn better. So what exactly are these? Simple. When you're in focus mode, you are paying close attention, like right now. Or at least I'm hoping that you are in focus mode right now. But when you are in diffuse mode, that is when your mind is relaxed and free. So think about the times when you are in diffuse mode. What do you think you are likely to be doing? Perhaps you can share with us in the chat right now what you think are behaviors of a person who is in a diffuse mode. There's no right or wrong answers, by the way, so don't be afraid to just share your thoughts. Your thoughts are precious to us. Eating. Thanks for your contribution, Amanda. Yes, when you're eating, are you in diffuse mode? There is a chance you are, unless you are doing stressed eating. When I was a teacher, for those of you who are also teachers, you might realize that as a teacher in school, your eating time is very limited. You eat during recess time or in between classes. So that's maybe like a 10 minutes, 15 minutes. I've trained myself to eat really fast as a teacher. So I've kind of had that habit. Even right now that I'm no longer teaching in schools, but I've trained myself to eat in 10 minutes or less because that's that amount of time I have. So when I'm eating while I was still a school teacher, was I in diffuse mode? I probably weren't that much in diffuse mode because I'm actually thinking about my next class. But yes, a lot of time we can be, when we are relaxed at home, especially spending time with family and loved ones, right? we are in diffuse mode. Yes, I see someone wrote playing the piano. Exactly. When you play the piano, you know, your mind drifts off, maybe to a scene. If you're playing a piece from a movie, maybe you're even thinking of that scene from the movie. So your mind is drifting off. On holiday, exactly. When you're on holiday, you are relaxed, you're free. So you're in diffuse mode. Daydreaming, bingo, Aruna, that's it. When you're daydreaming, you are in diffuse mode. But how many of us, including me as a teacher, right, and you as parents, how many of us have scolded our students or our children for daydreaming? Now, we have been brought up, or at least my generation, we have been brought up to think that daydreaming is bad. We shouldn't be daydreaming. But in honesty, if you look at what neuroscientists say, daydreaming is diffuse mode. And why is this important in learning how to learn? Because your brain needs to, let me just move this, go back and forth between focus and diffuse modes in order to learn effectively. It is quite impossible to expect anybody, whether you are a child or whether you're an adult, to stay focused for longer than 30 minutes. It's very challenging, especially when, you know, you only have one, for example, one screen to look at. So in effective learning, we want to be able to have that, you know, going back and forth between focused, because that's where your brain is really, you know, analyzing information, dissecting information. Then you go into diffuse mode when you start to daydream. And I can tell you, all right, a lot of times creative ideas pop up like a light bulb when you're in diffuse mode, but not in your focus mode. Because when you're focused, you are paying attention to the information that is being given to you and you are analyzing that. But when you're in diffuse mode, when you're relaxed, you become more creative. And in fact, for optimum learning, we need to have this back and forth. So parents, if your child daydreams, you know, once in a while, and don't scold them, let them be, because they might be thinking of the next multi-million dollar idea for all you know. So how do we encourage diffuse mode in learning? Going for a walk, perhaps. Looking out the window. So, you know, if your child is sitting down for a period of time doing work, encourage them to just pause. 25 to 30 minutes of focused attention. Pause for another 25 to 30 minutes of diffuse mode, where they can look out the window, they can daydream, they can doodle, because that helps them to go back to focus mode 25 or 30 minutes later and become, you know, even more focused. So that way their learning is accelerated and is more effective. Second technique, chunking. Before I left the corporate world for good a couple of years back, I was working in a company that actually does e-learning. And chunking was one of the, I would say, strategies we applied in e-learning because, you know, as we all know, e-learning is really learning from something that's online. And I'm talking about adult learning here. So it applies to children as well. So for adults at that time, we already knew that it is difficult to deliver a huge amount of content and expect the adults to be able to absorb everything. So in e-learning, we chunk them. We call them bite-sized learning, right? 15 minutes, 20 minutes, and that's it. And then you come for the next round, next session, or next workshop, for example. The same technique should be used for children. Because in chunking, and I'm quoting from the APA Dictionary of Psychology, is the process by which the mind divides large pieces of information into smaller units or chunks, we call them. They are easier to retain in short-term memory. So we are going to do a little bit of an exercise. Let's get ready. Okay, this is the instruction. Please pay attention because this is something for you to be engaged in, and I encourage you to write in your answers in the chat, okay? You have 5 seconds to look at the letters that's going to appear. 5 seconds only. Try to remember as many of the 18 letters as you can. Are you ready? Time starts now. 5 seconds is over. Now, may I invite all of us to write into the chat all the letters that you managed to remember. There were 18 letters. Many of you managed to remember 9 or 10 letters. Now, let's try again. I'm going to show you the same letters, the same 18 letters. Now they are rearranged and grouped. Remember chunking? Grouping, right? 5 seconds. Now, please share with me in the chat. What did you remember this time? Cat, ABC, XYZ, yes. Was it easier this time to be able to remember the 18 letters? Same 18 letters, but now we chunk them by rearranging them into meaningful groups. So instead of B, A, T, A, C, B, I, C, X, Y, Z, M, H, C, F, K, N, E, they became CAT, ABC, IBM, XYZ, HEN, KFC. So this is what I mean by chunking. When you group these information together, which makes more meaning, they become meaningful, it's so much easier to remember. Hope you enjoyed that little activity. Last technique I'd like to share with you, forming new habits. Our habits put us on autopilot mode, isn't it? Because when we have habits, we do things automatically because we have done them so many times before. I still remember that I used to drive to work, and it became so habitual that even on weekends when I drove the same route, only to realize I'm not going to my office. I'm going somewhere else. But because it's so habitual, I stopped thinking and I went on autopilot mode. So many of us have different habits that has put us on autopilot mode. For example, do you reach for the phone the moment it rings? Do you sit on the sofa or your couch the moment you get home from work, or your children, when they get home from school? Do they just sit down in front of the computer and start playing computer games? Do you, I don't know, what are the things that we do out of habits? There are so many, right? Now, in order to learn how to learn, we need to pre-plan to avoid distractions. All right? So, what is that? It is this. Write down the things that distract you from the task at hand. Come up with a new habit to work on. So basically, when we want to learn how to learn and learn better, we need to form new habits which are better. So we need to pre-plan from, to minimize our distractions. Because like I mentioned earlier, for example, the moment the phone rings, you reach for it. That's a habit, but that's also a distraction. If you're doing something that's important and the phone rings and you automatically reach for it, you have just distracted yourself. So a table like this, you can do for yourself or with your children, especially those of you who have children. You can plan this with your child and ask your child, what are the things that usually distracts you when you are doing work? Is it, let's say you have an older child and a younger child. Is it a younger child playing outside and you hear the sound and you decide, I want to go out? That could be a distraction. So what can be the new habit? The new habit could be, I'm going to make sure my door is closed when I'm doing work, and I maybe put on an earpiece with, soothing music that helps me to think better so I don't hear the noises outside. Now, I have some suggestions. These are good for adults. For example, and I'm prone to this. When a text message comes in, I stop whatever I'm doing and I reach for the phone. That's how I am. So I had to actually come up with a new habit so that I will minimize this distraction, because this distraction is not helping me to learn better. It's not helping me to do things faster or remember things longer. So what can a new habit be to replace this? Leave my phone in the kitchen when I'm doing work in my room. Because the moment the phone is not near me, I can't be distracted when it rings or when there's a sound, right? I can mute it, put it away. So whatever happens, in the phone, I have no idea until I finish what I'm supposed to be doing. So this is some tips for you. Right. The next part, I would like to invite Jean to share with us more about learning how to learn mathematics. Jean, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for sharing your precious Sunday afternoon with us to learn how to learn. Right. So for my segment, I will be touching on learning how to learn mathematics. So for myself, okay, I've been so I took on a mathematics degree in NTU, Nanyang Technological University in Singapore. And generally for me, right, throughout my school life, I felt that mathematics is not too difficult for me. I grasp mathematics concepts very quickly. Okay, and in fact, always be competing with my friends to see who finished the fastest. But I also, have seen some of my friends who, probably they are good in other areas, but they are just not good in math. Okay, and they will tell themselves like, oh, I'm not good in mathematics, or they just say that, oh, they just don't understand. They just find it, quite difficult, to learn mathematics. So let's look at the next slide. So are you like this? Okay, I believe not everyone is good in mathematics. So if you look at all these complicated symbols, like you can see A, B, and C. So it's like learning English, right? You have A, B, and C symbols, but in mathematics it's just not the same. You can have like A squared equals to B squared plus C squared, but like what is it? So are you like confused? Generally for me, okay. Next slide, please. So I feel that students in learning mathematics, they have to, especially for students who are weak in mathematics, they have to think of it such that in mathematics they can always improve. Okay, so I think for kids and for students, be it primary school or secondary school students, they always have to first start from the mindset. Okay, so in mathematics, yes, there's only one correct answer, but as you make mistakes, okay, you learn and you grow from it. Okay, so in mathematics, I believe, okay, before we can improve on our mathematical skills, first we have to develop a growth mindset. So instead of thinking like, oh, I'm just not a math person, I'm not good in mathematics. So instead of thinking that, because with that kind of phrase, when you are talking to yourself like that, it's actually a fixed mindset. You're already setting yourself to say that whether you are not good in mathematics and that you are not a maths person. So for myself, I believe that all students can get good in mathematics. They can do well for mathematics. Okay, so there are a few techniques that we can share with our students. Okay, and when we teach our kids how to learn mathematics, so instead of scolding your child, saying things like your child is not focusing, or your child is just stupid, for example. I mean we should not we should avoid such negative words. So we should always be encouraging to your child, and we always have to encourage your child to think positively about mistakes, about don't be afraid to make mistakes. Okay, and really just starting out in learning not only mathematics but of course all subjects, in developing that growth mindset, okay, in the child would go a long way. So learning how to learn, first we have to change our mindset to learn, to understand that we can always grow. Okay, we can always improve. Okay, next slide, please. right? So yeah, I'm sure, probably some of you or all of us, when we learn mathematics, like what's all this, complicated symbols? There are different topics, right? So of course, not everyone is have went into, for example, like engineering or specific mathematical subjects, and of course a lot of these formulas we probably have already forgotten because it's not part of our work. I would like to encourage students on this in such that we, again, like for example, in what Vereen has shared with us, we learn mathematics by chunking as well. Okay, we break it down step by step. So in mathematics, it is very process based, and you see all these complicated formulas. We somehow or rather we have to remember it, right? And we are learning a lot of various different topics in mathematics subject itself. So how exactly do we understand the concept, and how do we remember it? So I have a few techniques that we can use. Next slide, please. So for kids, okay, at a younger age, I believe that using images, using color, visualization will work very, very well on kids. So, in mathematics, it's just a lot of numbers, but we have to incorporate the numbers and match it to images and use a lot of colors to stimulate, their brains in this. And we have to paint a picture in the child's mind, okay, what they have just read, okay, or understood about the topic in mathematics. So this will help them to improve their vision memory and also to remember the mathematics concepts better. So we can create patterns and recognize, help your child or our students to recognize patterns and to categorize the patterns, categorize the information into patterns. Okay, so in mathematics, we have different topics. For example, in primary school, we're learning fractions. So in different topics, they are actually interlinked with another topic. For example, when the child is learning area or volume. So there are, certain aspects of the topic that are interlinked, but when a teacher teaches a particular topic, usually it's topic by topic, but there's no connection, there's no linkage. Even though, in mathematics on its own, okay, there is linkage. So we have to let the kids see that linkage, see that patterns, and we have to connect, their personal experiences with the topic itself to make mathematics interesting for them. If not, mathematics seems like just a very dry subject. It could be. So some students they might find mathematics very dry, okay, especially when we are starting out teaching the concept to them. Ultimately, at the end in Singapore's syllabus, we have the word problem. So in word problem, it is a story. Okay, we have to connect those story, okay, when they are asking specific questions, and we have to connect these questions to their personal experiences. So when we make that link, student will find it easier to understand the question itself. Okay, so and with that they can also remember better. Okay, so we also have to encourage our child and our students to ask questions, and no matter if the question may seem quite simple, or it may not it may be just a very simple question to clarify the doubts, but we should not put them down. Okay, we should encourage them to ask questions, and we should answer them as patiently as possible, and not just see their questions as very naive. So we should always encourage them to ask questions, because with them asking questions, they are thinking. So when when they are thinking, it stimulates their logical mind, the left brain. So we have to allow that to happen. Okay, and as Varun has mentioned, okay, we don't want our kids to overthink and overstress, when they are too focused. So we have to allow them to take breaks, allow them to lose focus once in a while. So when they are losing focus, so we do not overwhelm them with much information. And when we see that they are coming back, okay, when they are focused, then we share more of the specific information that we want them to remember. Okay, so we have to stagger between breaks. Next slide, please. So the reason why we can see some kids who are not very good in mathematics, so we can see that our brain works differently. We have the left brain and the right brain. So the left brain generally, it's the logical part of our mind. So it's very process based and systematic. So that is where students who are good in math are generally more of a left brain person, and whereas students who are not too good in grasping the mathematics concepts, they are generally a little more of the right brain person. Usually they are more creative, they enjoy stories, they enjoy reading novels, they enjoy art subject, music. They are more of the emotional person, right? And they are very imaginative. So you can see that these two are actually very different, right? And I feel that for students who are more of a right brain person, they can also learn mathematics and they can also improve their logical side of them. Okay, and we have to allow them to improve and to train their brains in that manner. So how should we do that? Let's look at the next slide, please. So there are a few tips, okay, to train right brain learners in mathematics. So some of the challenges that I see, the reason why children who are more of a right brain, they find difficulty learning mathematics is because they don't really understand why they have to learn mathematics. They don't understand why mathematics is important. Okay, so they don't understand the specific concepts. Why do they have to do a particular step? Whereas for left brain students, generally we can pick up, we can see it quite it is not too difficult to see the mathematics concepts and how it actually links up. But for students who are more of a right brain learners, they actually don't get it. So we have to explain to them why. For example, why are you learning a multiplication table? We have to give a context to that, and we have to give a context to the mathematics concepts in various topics. And as well, I find that using movement and physical activity will also help to stimulate them. For example, we can also use music, when we are teaching the kids or when the kids is learning. Okay, we can also get the kids to move about. For example, when they are actually learning cooking, for example, or when they are playing with toys, or when they are outside playing in the soccer field, they can actually think, while they are doing physical activities. And we can actually incorporate mathematical concepts while they are playing. So, for example, when you're with your child to a grocery store, you can actually, just allow them to calculate, on their own. So how much does an item cost and how much is it in total? So these are very basic concepts, which is the reason, why they have to learn mathematics, or why learning mathematics actually matters. Okay, so when we allow the kids to know, okay, why they have to be learning mathematics because it is part of everyday life. So they will be able to appreciate mathematics better. Okay, so rather than focusing on memorizing the steps, okay, I believe that it's more effective, okay, if we share with them the reasons why they have to do it, and then we break it down step by step, and we see, which steps do they have difficulty in, okay, and we break it down step by steps to clear, their make sure that the understanding of the concept is there, okay, to clear their doubts, okay, on this. So next slide, please. And well, of course, at the basic level, we have to have some foundation for mathematics, and not everyone will be, be engineers, or they will pursue a specific career in, with mathematics-based subjects. I mean, for example, like engineering, or be educators in mathematics. So I believe that mathematics is important, okay, as a life skill actually, on the basic level. But if you're looking at, for example, this slide, where there are so a lot of complicated formulas, so of course not all students may be suited, or they are interested to go further in mathematics. But we have to get our all of students to understand the concept at least at the secondary school and junior college level. So in this day and age where technology plays a big role, having mathematics concepts and coupled with programming is very important, because as right now we are moving into this, a lot of the things that we're using is all on technology. So the back end of it actually using mathematics, are done using mathematics, using logical processes through programming language. So programming itself is another language altogether, but mathematics actually is the key to help them, to understand processes, to break down processes. Okay, so that is the reason why mathematics in this day and age is especially important, and we have to, really go deep into the subject. So if we always push the kids, to let them know that they can always improve themselves, they can always learn. When they have the growth mindset, okay, they can be able to conquer mathematics. So that makes learning easier, and we always have to learn how to learn. And of course, the most important key, okay, in mathematics, and which is the next slide, okay, is how can we have to understand how to link these this subject, link the numbers. Number one, it has to make sense. Numbers make sense. We have to look at different solutions of number problems. Okay, we have to understand and learn the ways how numbers work. Okay, and mathematics itself is made up of interconnected ideas. So like I mentioned, mathematics, programming, engineering. So these are similar, related topics, which the foundation of it is mathematics. And mathematics in life, in nature, like right now, we are so interconnected with technology. So mathematics is the basis and is the foundation, and we have to, let the kids see that. And with that, we let them explore, okay? And we also have to let them to see mathematical patterns in nature and in sports, for example. There are a lot of applications in mathematics. And the key, okay, the most important key in mathematics is, next slide, please. The most important key is to practice, okay? They have to, so students, to get better in mathematics, okay, the key is really to practice, and practice. They have to be continuously, practicing mathematics in order to improve themselves. So a little bit of element of being, getting good grades in mathematics is really hard work. Okay, they have to practice a lot. So I think with that, I will end my session and I will pass it on back to Vareen.
All right, thank you very much, Jean. So, dear parents, I would like to take this opportunity to share with you why I founded UltraCamp Asia, and I call it an Advanced Life Skills Academy. It is precisely because after 24 years of being in the education and training industry, I can tell you there is a huge gap in our education system. I'm speaking about Singapore and the systems in Asia, where learning how to learn and other life skills are actually not addressed in school, in formal learning, and they are not taught, and primarily because that's not what schools are for. If you've been reading about recently there's been a lot of articles and interviews of people who are very successful, and a lot of them are saying that our schools, our education system, if you trace back to when it first started many years ago, it was really designed to build a workforce, right, of people who will go into the workforce. That's the reason why they don't address the number one skill, which is learning how to learn. So bear with me for a few more minutes. I would just like to share with you something that was birthed out of my passion for teaching, children. And what is this UltraCamp Asia all about? It's really about experiential learning. As I shared earlier, that every child has a different learning style. At the end of the day, when learning is experiential, it is not just writing, reading. It's not just listening. It's not just doing, but it's a combination of all these things. Learning becomes even more effective. In UltraCamp Asia, we have 5 core components. We call them academic excellence, leadership development, personal development, mindset and values, fitness, and nutrition. Now, I won't spend too much time describing each of these because this can be found on our website. But what I really would like to share with you today is the foundation upon which we have built UltraCamp Asia. It is built upon these 2 very important foundations. It is that, number one, every student has a different learning style. So whatever we do to equip our students with the necessary learning and life skills is always from the perspective that every child learns differently. So we have all the solutions for multimodal learners. And the next thing, which is so important, is to realize that before any effective learning can take place, we must all first learn how to learn. And therefore, in our camps, we do address skills very intentionally. If you look at what's on the right, I won't read them all out, but this is not an exhaustive list. These are just some of the main skills that we do equip our students with, because you can see that a lot of these are soft skills. And coming from corporate training, I can also tell you that a lot of adults, right, they only pick up certain soft skills when they become adults. And in fact, they will realize it is very challenging, because while you are an adult, you have different responsibilities, different from a student who is still in school. You have your work, you have your family, you have bills to pay, and then you have to equip yourself with the skills that will allow you to propel yourself up the ladder. Do you have the time to do it? And not only that, if you've unwittingly picked up skills or the knowledge, or information that's not, I would say, correct in the first place, then you have to go through the pain of unlearning and relearning. And most of these skills, right, that you see on the left, critical thinking and all that, these are all 21st century skills, which every educator will tell you is necessary, and we need to start them off from young. We do not need to wait for them to become adults before they start to pick up all these skills. In fact, in our last webinar, I was sharing with parents that what we are looking at UltraCamp Asia is to build up every child a CEO, every child an entrepreneur, every child a business owner. So, we don't have time to show you the videos. They can be found on our YouTube channels where we also have testimonials from students. But if you check out our Facebook page, you also see a lot more videos there as well. Now, however, I'm happy to share with you that we have launched a virtual summer camp, and it's happening in July, 25th to 26th of July. This is a Saturday and Sunday. And this is Singapore timing, 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. with lots of screen breaks. I'll share with you the timetable in a while's time. And the content is designed for children between 9 to 15 years old. So, what exactly is the virtual camp about? There are 4 key workshops. The first one is aviation. So the question we like to ask our students is, have you ever wondered what makes airplanes fly? So in fact, this is like a mini science lesson, but with lots of fun hands-on activities. Now, I understand that, online learning is not the best way of learning for everyone, especially, children with different learning styles. But because we are so mindful of the fact that everyone has a different learning style, we have in place fun and engaging activities, even for the kinesthetic learners. They won't be sitting down and looking at the screen. They'll be moving around. So not to worry about that. All right. Now, so for aviation, we have our trainer is actually a flight instructor. He's also a drone instructor. And of course, we can't be teaching drone, through an online camp. But when the live camps are able to take place again, we will also include, drone as part of the curriculum. The second key workshop is actually virtual reality. I'm not too sure how familiar are all your parents of virtual and augmented reality, but I can tell you this is the future of learning. In fact, it is not new. Virtual reality, augmented reality isn't new, but it is not widely adopted in education for various reasons, all right? So we would like the children, to actually be experiencing this, what virtual reality is all about. And for all one of the students may just be the next creator of a new, virtual reality game or augmented reality product or software. So we'd like to transport them to a different world through virtual reality and dive deep into the underwater world, and of course, lots more through this immersive learning experience, because that's what virtual reality provides. It provides that immersive learning experience. Imagine your child may be 5 years old, 7 years old, 9 years old. They've never, I would say, you probably won't allow them to go diving, right? It's too young, it's too dangerous. But what if virtual reality allows them to look at the underwater world, in a safe environment, but it's so immersive that they feel that they are right there in that environment? That's what virtual reality does for education and learning. The third key workshop is on brain nutrition and cognitive fitness. You realize that we do emphasize, and in our last webinar, BAM shared about brain nutrition and how it is closely related to learning. Because a lot of times when a child has difficulty paying attention, it's not just the learning how to learn techniques that will address, these challenges. It's also about what have they been eating. So brain nutrition is also something that, we would like to highlight to students, because while we are educating students, we also have webinars to share with parents, so that, in the family, you start to pay more attention to better ingredients and better nutrition for children. And cognitive fitness is really fitness that is not just, activity-based, but is more to do with cognitive learning, brain learning, so where we activate their thinking skills while they are, involved in fitness activities. So it's really designed to help them to stay alert and focus and be able to focus a lot longer. And the last key workshop is actually academic excellence. And this is a workshop that I'm personally training because I'm very passionate about teaching how to learn. And I'm very passionate about inspiring students to really excel beyond what they think they're capable of. And like what Jean shared earlier about the growth mindset, this is something that's very much part of UltraCamp Asia, where we believe that if a child has a fixed mindset, we help them to break out of it and go into a growth mindset where they see the endless possibilities. So in this academic excellence component, we are going to be teaching our students learning how to learn skills so that they know how to accelerate their learning abilities. And also be sharing with them useful strategies to help them to become more self-driven and self-directed in learning. And that's the number one challenge that we realize parents have, because during the home-based learning, a lot of parents have this one challenge. My child is not self-motivated. My child is not self-driven. My child is not self-directed. I have to constantly, make sure that he or she is doing the work, focusing online and things like that. So we are coming in to help you with a few useful strategies. Now, here's a sample timetable, because we talked about learning how to learn. And one of the techniques is, focus mode and diffuse mode. So we ensure that there are, enough breaks in between where our students can go into diffuse mode. So if you look at the timetable that I'm sharing with you, there are sprint breaks. Allow them to go to the toilet, grab a snack, or doodle, or just look out the window. There are lots of energizers, especially good for kinesthetic learners who want to be able to move around. And that's possible even through online learning. And so we've broken it into segments so that while we are teaching a certain component, it's not done in a way where the students will, zone out after half an hour and we never recover them. So not to worry, we have in mind all the different learning styles that children have, and therefore we have designed it to meet these needs. We've almost reached the end of our sharing. So for parents who have any questions with regards to what we shared earlier about learning how to learn math, or the virtual summer camp, please feel free to, ask the questions now. You can type it into the chat, or you can actually unmute yourself so that we can hear you. It's really up to you. Are there any questions for us?
I have some questions.
Yes, please.
Yeah, this is regarding about learning maths. So it was mentioned that like about discrete patterns and connecting experiences. So like if at all we have to teach children like formulas and things like that, I mean it becomes very difficult. So I mean, if you can give an example of creating patterns or connecting experiences, if that is what you're teaching in your workshops, if you can give one example at least to understand them, and what is that different way in which you will be teaching, so it will help.
And so how old is your child? Okay, 3 years old and 10 years old, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So 10 years old, I believe your child is learning the topics like fractions, area, volume, graphs.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So these are different topics, right? Different topics. So actually, each of these topics are interlinked. And one way for you to create patterns, experiences, is to link it to everyday life. Okay, so for example, in fractions, you see fractions. For example, you're learning. For example, you can give them a scenario. Okay, typically, in fractions question would be, for example, you have a pizza and you cut it into 6 slices, for example, right? And for example, if you take 3 slices, so basically that's half. So some students they may find difficulty in understanding basic fractions, equivalence. So how do you relate it back? So for example, you are talking about a story, so you can talk about a story of cutting pizza, okay, sharing pizza. So then you can use a storytelling technique, for example, to relate back to your child's experience. For example, if he has eaten pizza, right? So I'm sure he has eaten pizza. They relate back and ask them a question. How many pizza, how many slices is there in the pizza, right? So if he take three slices, so he's actually taking like half of the pizza already. So when you relate that, okay, then he will be able to think, oh, okay, so it's related. And then when it comes to the problem sums, word problems, okay, in school we teach using the bar models. So again, bar models, how do you relate back to the pizza? So basically it is similar, except the shape is different. One is a round shape and one is a rectangular shape. But we connect it and we make patterns out of it. And we use a lot of colors. So for example, if you're taking 3 slices, so when you draw it out, okay, in a bar model, for example, you can actually color it. Okay, use colors. So these are some of the ways that I would, actually make mathematics interesting through connecting, the different elements and connecting it back to their own experiences to actually let them link it to learning mathematics. So instead of just explaining what's in the textbook, which is very dry, and some students, they don't relate it that well. So there are some of the strategies that I use. And I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. I just want to know, like, this is the topic which Varen Lee covered. So she was talking about visual, auditory, and kinesthetic people, right? Like, I mean, so what I wanted to know is like whether any child is visual, like whether all the children are visual when they are born. So, or like a child can be like, I mean, totally auditory like by birth. So because I have like, I mean, since I am interested in this aspect, I keep reading. So in which they basically mention that like all children are like, I mean, visual when they are small. I mean, by birth everybody is visual. So is that like, I mean, I just wanted to understand that statement.
Okay, let me answer your question. No, it's not true that by birth every child is a visual learner, because at the end of the day, whatever learning style they have is really, I would say, kind of started the moment they started learning. So it is not true, because if you look at little kids, some of them are not really visual learners. Some of them are very kinesthetic. They just like to touch things, they like to, move around, and that's when they learn best. Some actually like to listen, and that's why we're going to have actually, we are launching a storytelling program for little kids, because it helps them to learn by listening to the English language, and from there we instill the love of learning through storytelling. So some children love to listen, some children love to look at pictures. That's why you have some kids who just love watching cartoons, all right, but not all kids actually grow up watching cartoons. Some actually, even from very young, they love looking at books. Even they don't understand the words, but they're looking at the pictures. Yes, you can say in that sense that's visual. Yeah, that's the reason why I said that there are no one learning style for every person, every child. We are actually a combination of a few styles. So even myself, although I'm more reading and writing, but I also like to, touch and feel sometimes, because that helps me to internalize the learning better. Yeah, I hope that has answered your question, Aruna.
Yes, it has. Well, however, like, I mean, as you said, since it is a mixture, I think it is essential for a person to understand oneself. Like, if at all, I think as a parent, if I try to identify whether my child is kinesthetic, I mean to say more kinesthetic, or like dominant kinesthetic or dominant visual, I find it like a little difficult to understand, because only that person will be able to understand or perceive, I guess. I mean, that's what I think. I don't know.
Yes. So as parents or as educators, what we can do is we can observe how our children learn, and that helps us to actually kind of pinpoint what kind of a learner are they. So of course, at the end of the day, the child themselves know best, and that's the reason why there are certain techniques to help them. But of course, if you really want to understand what is the style, learning style of your child. There are actually online surveys, but they are designed for children above a certain age. Actually, call them youth. So, because there are some questions that they'll ask, and from those questions, they analyze the answer, and they will be able to provide a report to tell you what kind of learning style does that student have. But they don't have those kind of tests for younger kids because it's harder to ask them certain questions because they may not understand it. So as a parent or as an educator, what we can do really is to have a keen observation of the children. So that tells us a lot, because when you pay attention to how they learn, you realize actually what kind of a learning style they're exhibiting, and then you can actually help them by creating that environment that's most suitable for them as that kind of learner. And of course, at the end of it all, there's no one size fits all. We can do trial and error. We can find ways to help a child learn better, and we have to keep trying to actually finally be able to arrive at something that works for the child, because there's just so many ways of learning and really different combinations. So like you say, a child can be more dominant as a kinesthetic learner, or it could be a 50-50 kinesthetic and visual, So we just have to, at the end of the day, really observe them and help them along the way so that they can learn, become better learners.
Okay. Yeah, one last question. I mean, this regarding something which Bam, I think he told in the beginning. So, like he was mentioning about how children are trained in China from a very young age, like say around 7 or much before that, so that they can be ready for competitions like Olympics. So, what I want to understand is that, like, I mean, whether this kind of training, is it suitable for every child, or is it we need to understand the mentality of the child and then only train them accordingly, because not every child can go to Olympics. Can every child withstand that kind of a stress? Can every child be trained to withstand that kind of a stress? That's something which I like to understand.
Okay. So that's a pretty big question, which will be supported by it can be quite a big be a big answer as well. Let me just before I explain it, let me just give an example of this very famous tennis player back in the 80s. His name was Andre Agassi. I don't know if you know about this player.
I know him. I am a very big tennis fan. Yeah, I know him.
Yeah, so he married this other tennis star called Steffi Graf. Correct me if I'm wrong, those tennis players, but
no, you are right.
So if you look at the autobiography of Andre Agassi, in the book, he actually didn't want to become a tennis player. He hated tennis. And I think he loved golf or something else much more than that. But his father insisted that he took up tennis. Again, if you look at if you look back at the question, are the children able to learn certain things? What are their strengths and weaknesses? Like Vareen said also, in fact, it has to be a trial and error process, because the human brain and the psychology of human brains, we may like certain things at a very young age, but the environment changes and the area of influence around us changes, and our motivational levels changes, and sometimes that's why we have people that I know who have been lawyers and now they are yoga instructors. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So again, it's very hard to tell the sustainability of the interest of any child. In fact, I know an entrepreneur who was always in self-doubt. He's worth about $300 million in the US right now, and he always says that his mom, no matter how he was bullied in school or how he was looked down upon, she was always the reinforcer. And she was always that person that says, don't worry about it. You are worth what you're worth. And you can do better each time. So she was always very encouraging. Like what Jean said, you always have to encourage students and not input negative affirmations into them, because they're like sponges, they absorb everything. So again, when it comes to sports, if you talk about the physical aspect, it depends on the child. Some children love to play soccer, but they just cannot do well because maybe how their bone structure is being built, maybe they're too lanky and they cannot sprint or run. As you can see, the build of soccer players, the tallest soccer player can be only about 1.92 meters. You don't see a NBA player playing soccer. Again, if you put Michael Jordan to play golf, he won't perform as well as playing basketball, as well as baseball, right? So again, it's trial and error. Put your child in the environment, let them see what they're interested in, just nurture them, guide them through the right nutrition, put them into the right training systems like coaching and all that, and then see how they blossom. One day they will probably say, Mom, I think I'm not really good in this, but I still want to continue and try it. Then as a parent, I would just say, keep going. Because at the end of the day, it's the child's inner happiness that's important. Let them make the choice and make the decision. You just be the catalyst of encouragement. And then we'll see what happens from then on. Yeah?
Yeah. No, that's right. You're right. I agree with you. And then that was really good. Thanks a lot.
No worries. My pleasure. So, Vareen, do you have anything you want to mention? But before Vareen comes on, I just want to add on that this is actually a session that we have. Our presentation has been recorded. So if you have friends that you feel that it's worth to share with them, please, we will send you an email with some details, and then you can forward it to your friends. So we would also have it on our YouTube channel and Facebook pages as well. So rest assured, we will not leave this session as it is. And we thank you all from the bottom of our hearts that you've come today and attended this session. So take it away, Vareen.
All right, thank you. So if there are no more questions, we'd like to end this session with this quote by our UltraCamp Asia. Inside every child lies the seed of greatness. And parents and educators, I would like to remind all of us that it is up to us to nurture that seed into greatness. Remember that for your child and for the children that you will be teaching. All right, so thank you very much for spending this afternoon with us. So look out for our email where we'll be sending you the replay link. All right, and if there's any more questions, you can always send them to us via our emails as well. Thank you all once again for your precious time this afternoon. We hope you've learned much from our sharing. All right, thank you, and goodbye. Hope to see you again.